Yeah.
Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert, bringing you some of the best college football news, predictions, and analysis. Way back in the summer, before the season even started, we released a video titled, Who's In?, detailing some potential college football playoff scenarios, of which we had Oklahoma and Georgia up on the board. Well, now those teams do find themselves, after the entire regular season, right on the outside looking in, battling for that final college football playoff spot. But joining them on this board is not LSU, a team that has probably already clinched a college football playoff spot regardless of what happens in the SEC title game. But they are joined by Utah and Baylor, two teams that I don't think anybody saw potentially making the college football playoff before the season started. So today we are here to break down the real college football playoff scenarios, not the hypothetical ones that we did way back in the summer, but the ones that we will get answers to this Saturday at the conclusion of Conference Championship Weekend. We have listed the four teams up there battling it out for that final college football playoff spot, and we have listed the easiest way for these teams to get into the top four and to see their name called on Selection Sunday. So we're going to start with the team that, if the playoffs were to begin today, would already be in, and that is Georgia. The Georgia Bulldogs sit right now with an 11-1 record, the only loss coming a couple weeks ago, or I should say about 2 months ago, in October to South Carolina. A bad loss, but the committee still likes them because of their quality wins over the likes of Notre Dame, Florida, and Auburn. But they have a very big date this Saturday in Atlanta against LSU. Arguably the best team in the entire SEC, one of the best teams in the entire nation, although they are ranked number 2 right now by the College Football Playoff Committee. The easiest way for Georgia to get in is to win the SEC championship. If Georgia wins, they are in. The committee will not leave out the SEC champion. So if the Bulldogs upset the Tigers, they will be making the playoff. And as you can see below, every single one of these teams, we list what the playoffs would be if these scenarios came true. And in the case of Georgia, if they were to win, you would more than likely have Ohio State at number 1, Clemson at number 2. You would then have Georgia at number 3. They would probably move up a spot. And then you would have LSU at number 4. A lot of people may disagree with that. Why would LSU stay in? The committee cannot leave out an LSU team, assuming the SEC championship is close, assuming it's within one possession. The committee will not, I should say, leave out an LSU team that ran the table the entire season, finished the season undefeated with a win at Alabama, a quality win against Auburn, a quality win against Florida, and did this, a lot of them, in dominating fashion. They're also going to be led by the Heisman Trophy winner, more than likely, in Joe Burrow, and one of the most explosive offenses in the entire country. If LSU loses the SEC championship game by a narrow margin, they will remain in the top 4, and you will have 2 SEC teams in the college football playoff. And once again, that's not unheard of. That happened just a few years ago when Alabama and Georgia both did it and ended up meeting in the national championship game. You could argue the seeding there. You could say Georgia being at number 4, maybe with the win over LSU, they jump a team like Clemson or something like that. So maybe the order is not correct, but the teams are. Of course, we are assuming that Ohio State and Clemson will take care of business against Wisconsin and Virginia, respectively. So that's, of course, going to be the case for all the rest of these scenarios, that Ohio State and Clemson take care of business in the Big Ten and ACC title games. If they don't, then forget all these scenarios. It's going to create major chaos on Selection Sunday. So that's the easiest way for Georgia to get in. Win, and they are in. If they lose, they are not going to the playoff. Right below them, we have Utah. The Utes, a very big surprise team. Many thought they would win the Pac-12 this season. Many thought they could be that dark horse playoff contender, but most of the time when you think of a dark horse, you don't picture it coming true. Utah is making it coming true this season behind one of the best defenses in the entire country and one of the most balanced and experienced offenses in the entire country, led by Tyler Huntley at quarterback and Zach Moss at running back. The easiest path to the playoff for Utah right now is to just win the Pac-12 championship game over Oregon and then hope that Georgia does in fact lose to LSU in the SEC title game. They are right behind Georgia right now in these college football playoff rankings. If Georgia loses and Utah wins, I don't see any way how the committee can leave out the Ute. Even if you have a team like Oklahoma or Baylor, the winner of the Big 12 championship, you can put them together. We can measure strength of schedule. You can measure margin of victory. You can measure quality wins, quality of. There's no way that they can leave out a Utah team that has only had 2 games this season decided by 1 possession. One of those was their lone loss to USC, who the committee ranked, and it finished the season at 8-4. The other was a 5-point victory on the road against Washington, who, yes, had a disappointing season, but they got the win, and that's what matters. 10 of their 12 games were decided by 2 possessions or more. Not many teams in the country can say that. So if Utah wins the Pac-12 convincingly over Oregon, or even by just a 1-possession game, as long as they win the Pac-12 and Georgia loses to LSU, Utah will be in the college football playoff. And that, of course, would have Ohio State at 1, LSU at 2, Clemson at 3, and Utah at 4. And would set up a very intriguing showdown in the semifinals as Ohio State and that high-octane offense led by Justin Fields and J.K. Dobbins would go up against a dominant defense in Utah, who's only allowing a little over 56 rushing yards per game. Could pose for a very interesting game and could put Ohio State on upset alert on the semifinal matchup. Right below them, we have Oklahoma and Baylor, the 2 teams that will be meeting in the Big 12 championship game. So one of these teams is going to win, and they are going to be playoff contenders. They're going to be hoping that some chaos happens above them. The loser will be out because the loser will have 2 losses on the season. We'll start with Oklahoma here. The easiest way for Oklahoma to guarantee themselves a spot in the college football playoff is to just win the Big 12 over Baylor. That would be 2 wins in the same season over the Bears, 1 coming at a neutral site, 1 coming down in Waco where they battled back down 28-3. And then, of course, hope teams lose above them. Hope Utah loses to Oregon, which is very well possible, and hope that Georgia loses to LSU. Both of those teams lose, the 4 and 5 teams both lose, then Oklahoma is definitely in, and it's not up for discussion. Regardless of what the margin of victory is for Oklahoma, what we have up on the board, if that happens on Saturday, Oklahoma and Lincoln Riley are going to the college football playoff yet again. And I don't see any of these teams, whether it be Utah, Oklahoma, or Baylor, I don't see any of these teams getting put higher than the 4th spot, of course, unless Clemson or Ohio State or someone like that ends up falling in their championship game. But we're going to assume that doesn't happen right now. Oklahoma comes in, gets the 4th spot, Ohio State at 1, LSU at 2, Clemson at 3, and then Oklahoma coming in at 4. So you would have Justin Fields taking on Jalen Hurts, the 2 transfer quarterbacks, facing off in a semifinal matchup that could be very high scoring, but Ohio State would certainly own that defensive edge. Once again here, we are just assuming these things. These are projections. These are the ways these teams can get in there when it comes down to the seeding, the way we have listed the top 4. The playoff committee could switch it up a little bit. They might flip-flop LSU and Ohio State depending on their performances. They could, move Clemson ahead of another team depending on their performance and depending on LSU's performance, assuming they beat Georgia. A lot of things can change in the way these teams are ordered. And a lot of people don't like to think that the order matters, but it does matter because that's who you play in the semifinals. Would you rather play Ohio State or would you rather play Clemson? Would you rather play LSU or would you rather play Ohio State? There's a lot of things that go in to these seedings, guys. There certainly is such a thing as a more favorable matchup in the semifinal. There are some teams you want to avoid until the championship game, and then there are some teams that you would hope to get in the semifinals that would maybe give you a better chance of making that championship game. So these are our projections for right now, but I don't think any of these 3 teams listed below Georgia could go higher than the 4th spot. And then finally for Baylor, they have the same recipe for success as Oklahoma. That's what makes this Big 12 championship game such a big deal, is because they are both so highly ranked. They are both in the top 10 that the winner of this game automatically beats someone either above them for Baylor or below them in Oklahoma, but it's a top 10 win to add to their resume and makes them an automatic contender for the playoff and probably puts them side by side with Utah, assuming once again that Georgia loses. I'm not trying to dog on Georgia here, but I know LSU is the favorite. I know many are picking LSU to win. We are picking LSU to win, and that's why are we assuming that the Bulldogs will lose. So regardless of what happens, The winner of the Big 12 championship game will be put side by side with Utah if they beat Oregon, and the committee will measure the metrics. They will look at a lot of numbers and decide who is most deserving of getting put in. But Baylor, a team that has quality wins over what would maybe be Oklahoma in the Big 12 championship game, a win over Kansas State, a win over Iowa State, a win over Texas, so some quality wins here and there. They beat Oklahoma. Utah and Georgia both lose. Baylor's in the Big 12 championship game, college football playoff, 2 years removed from a 1-11 season. What a turnaround by Matt Rule down in Waco. So if that happens, your top four is Ohio State, LSU, Clemson, Baylor, and you've got Ohio State taking on Baylor in the semifinal, and LSU and Clemson facing off in what would be a fantastic and maybe an instant classic college football playoff semifinal. So we've said it before and we'll say it again. You're seeing it now. We know that going into this conference championship weekend, we have 4 teams up here that are fighting for that final college football playoff spot. LSU, regardless of what happens, I feel is a lock. And I think I could maybe say the same for Ohio State. The loss to Wisconsin wouldn't be nearly as good as the loss to Georgia, Wisconsin being a lower-ranked team than Georgia. But regardless of what happens, I believe that LSU and Ohio State will make the college football playoff, assuming that their losses, if they were to lose, are by 1 possession. Clemson should not fall to Virginia. If they do, they are out, and you have a whole new wave of contenders that will be fighting for not just 1, but maybe 2 spots in the college football playoff. But these are your 4, fighting for that 4th spot. What is going to happen this Saturday? It's one of the biggest conference championship weekends we have had in a very, very long time. 3 top 10 showdowns all taking place, all having major college football playoff implications. Here are the scenarios. Let's wait and find out on Sunday who will be in. So guys, thank you for watching us here on YouTube. Make sure to like this video and check out everything we have for you in the description below for some exclusive college football content and offers. And once again, thank you for watching. Please continue to like, comment, and subscribe. And we'll see you next time on The Gridiron Expert.